Yeah, I mean, I guess anytime you get like anywhere near anything that seems just like mildly out of the ordinary, it becomes like there's this part of people's brain that just goes, no, 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 that's too crazy. And
Yep.
and like I had James on my show there about a month ago. And he's the one that put us in touch. And when I was talking to him about his story, like it was crucial for me to continue to like check what we could verify. And every time he said something, you go and look, and he's right. And when you just listen to it, you think, oh, that guy's fucking insane. But as soon as you look at all the stuff that he's saying, and it's true, and it's true, and it's true, and you go, wow, okay. But like, what do you think it is in people's brain that stops them like as soon as anything just gets like a little bit crazy or a little bit sci-fi or a little bit sort of, well, Orwellian or Huxley-esque or whichever word you want to use from from those three, like what is it that stops people from going beyond that point?
It's, to use a term that John Hine had created, jumping the shark. You might be familiar with this term when in a TV show like Happy Days, you jump the shark. Fonzie jumped the shark. That was too unrealistic. That's the uncanny valley effect. Clyde Lewis on Ground Zero has talked about this. The folks over on Coast to Coast had talked about this. But when things hit an uncanny valley level, they say, that can't be possible. That's weird. That's bizarre. Or we're looking at the technology of deep fakes. And at first, they seemed interesting. But now you're starting to see a lot of deep fakes. It's not just one or two. There's like one every day now, or
Mm.
there's a few dozen every day. And now this is where things are becoming troubling, because where does AI start? Where does it stop? And where is the human interaction between the two? So when people hit that point, their minds can't interpret it. So the information goes from being something that's presentable or even non-fictional to it's too fictitious to believe, which means that, technology that we don't know about, like you and I, there's stuff that we just don't know about. The idea of 6G, well, it seems fictional, but it's got to exist, right? This is the problem. There's an uncanny valley, and where you don't want to go, you don't want to go there if you don't have the evidence. So it stops people from belief, but it creates the questioning. So
Mm.
I'm sure we'll touch on this topic about conspiracy theories later, but this is where it's important to have the theory and not just let it go to the ground. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I guess like even when you provide people with evidence, they're like, no, no, this is insane. Don't be stupid. Governments wouldn't do something like that. Like I had this experience with like a family friend who was in the military and did work with the police and still does some sort of consulting on security stuff. And
Yep.
I brought up to him the idea of MKUltra, which is a totally real documented
Yep.
thing. It happened.
Yep.
Like the American government, and I'm not sure if the Canadian government were involved actually, but
Yes.
yeah, they were. Okay, so they just took American and Canadian citizens off the street or from mental hospitals or just sort of lifted them off the street and performed horrendous electroshock therapy experiments on them, or like dosed them up with LSD, or that there was loads of like weird fucked up experiments going on basically. And I was talking to him about this, and he just didn't even believe me that that was real. And I was like, man, like Google it, like. Like it's even when there's evidence, people like struggle to get to that point where they'll believe what you're saying. And even with the evidence, and like did you find you got that a lot when you're talking to people about the themes and topics in your book?
Um, I've hit a Twilight Zone level with my book. So it's almost a question of where do I start? uh, you tell your family that you wrote a book, and it's like they don't believe you. This is weird to me. Okay. So, and I told them, you can get my book on Amazon. Feel free to say it's garbage if you'd like, or it's great. I want you to buy the book and read it and see for yourself What is your analysis and your conclusion? I have a pretty big family. It's like nobody in my family either knows how to read or didn't buy my book, and I guarantee you, all of them know how to read. So it started becoming weird the longer that the book had been published, that people weren't acknowledging what was being said in the book. They weren't even arguing against it. They weren't, and I'm emphasizing, please read this book, because what I had labeled and what I had researched, and I have been researching this for a good decade plus. So before I kind of like went off the handle, I recognized that this had to have happened. This has happened. It's been documented. It's been recorded. And especially with the Frank Church hearings, there was not a denial by the CIA or the FBI, and even the Canadian government. They took part of the Montreal projects. That was the connection to MKUltra. So here in the Western world, we like to deny it because we don't want to think about that. And that's what's troubling when you try to present the information in the most cohesive way to show that, yes, I'm sane. I'm trying to label this for you to understand. It's like people still can't pick it up, which makes you wonder if the technology is affecting them as well, or something, whether it's their television or their media. Maybe it's not being presented correctly. I have no idea. But again, it's Twilight Zone level, where your own family would overlook something that might be a massive milestone in your life and think it's for nothing, but it's very important to understand. And military people that I've tried to show this book to almost ignore me entirely, as if like, yes, we know, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like they've been caught red-handed, and weren't expecting this kind of this style of book. It is quite the curveball from your average citizen. So that's kind of where the rest of the title comes from, Concerned Citizens Manifesto, because it is, but I think the word manifesto scares people and they think communism. Even though the book doesn't really have to do with that, but
communism or
fine.
Unabomber, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and not to go off on the tangent, but when you research somebody like the Unabomber, that's an intelligent man that went over the edge and took his knowledge to an extreme. So intelligent people, when you aren't listening to them, or they start to just go insane. They really do. They start going violent. Even maybe we should research if the Unabomber was involved secretly in a military project to have him go off the edge.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about. There's some things that people said that he was involved in MKUltra, and that's what made him lose his mind. But I don't think that there was any actual evidence that took place.
There wasn't.
The thing that people think like sort of sent him over the edge was he took part in like an experiment while he was at university. I cannot remember what university he went to, but he took part in some like psychological experiment, as far as I was aware, where he basically went in and presented his stuff, and then like they just abused him. They were like, "You're stupid. How could you think this?" Like, and they just sort of abused him for a while to see how he would take it. And people point at that for like breaking him, but I mean, like just criticizing someone is not really enough to say like, oh yeah, totally, that's what made him want to murder people, or send bombs in the mail. I don't really buy that as a good enough explanation. And just also to note, for people who don't know Frank Church, I got up his warning about the NSA. This was from 1975, and he said that capability at any time could be turned around on the American people, and no American would have any privacy left, such as the capability to monitor everything. Telephone conversations, telegrams, it doesn't matter. There would be no place to hide. And that was in 1975. And then, as we probably all know, Edward Snowden proved that was 110% totally the case. And then he was exiled to Russia.
Well, Senator, let me follow up by asking, do you think that the CIA and military intelligence agencies and the FBI have used the emergency provisions, both in law and by emergency agency, the Federal Preparedness Agency it's called now, to have contingency plans which threaten the liberty of American citizens?
Mr. Rowan, In due course, the committee will pass judgment on those questions. I'm not going to pre-guess the committee or prematurely attempt to pass judgment on this program. But let me tell you this. In the need to develop a capacity to know what potential enemies are doing, the United States government has perfected a technological capability that enables us to monitor the messages that go through the air. These messages are between ships at sea, they could be between units, military units in the field. We have a very extensive capability of intercepting messages wherever they may be in the airwaves. Now that is necessary and important to the United States as we look abroad at enemies or potential enemies. We must know. At the same time, that capability at any time could be turned around on the American people. And no American would have any privacy left, such is the capability to monitor everything, telephone conversations, telegrams, it doesn't matter. There would be no place to hide if this government ever became a tyranny, if a dictator ever took charge in this country. The technological capacity that the intelligence community has given the government could enable it to impose total tyranny. And there would be no way to fight back, because the most careful effort to combine together in resistance to the government, no matter how privately it was done, is within the reach of the government to know. Such is the capability of this technology. Now, why is this investigation important? I'll tell you why. Because I don't want to see this country ever go across the bridge. I know the capacity that is there to make tyranny total in America. And we must see to it that this agency and all agencies that possess this technology operate within the law and under proper supervision, so that we never cross over that abyss. That's the abyss from which there is no return.
Yeah.
And that's what happens.
Thanks so much for listening. If you haven't already and you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast and to our mailing list. And don't forget, my book, Brexit, The Establishment Civil War, is now available for pre-order on Amazon. You'll find the link in the description below. Until next time, thanks so much for listening.